Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to see current affairs of 1st January 2022. First of all, I wish you a very happy new year for all of you, and I wish you this year will brings all your dreams come true. So let's get started with our discussion and let us try to see which are the topics now we are going to have discussion. So we are going to discuss 6 topics in this lecture, and most of the editorials in today's newspaper are based on this COVID-19 and vaccines of COVID-19. So we already had enough discussion regarding that. So we are skipping that. So if you are interested, please you can go to that articles which appeared in this editorial page today. And the first topic it is about needless provocation. So this article regarding India-China relations. So in yesterday's lecture we studied background of this topic regarding this China, which is mainly naming 15 areas, 15 places in this Arunachal Pradesh. Officially mainly they want to include that in their map. So this article it is regarding India-China relations. So this is important from international relations, which mainly comes under our GS paper 2. And next topic is about GST Council. GST Council defer tax rate increase on textiles. So actually what happened, if you see the background regarding this GST, so changing of slabs that mainly happened. So because of that, some important items from 5% GST entered into 12% GST. So in those some items like we can say like footwear is there and as well as textiles is there. So from today onwards, that is from January 1st, 2022 onwards, so the new tax slabs of this GST will apply, right? So even if you go to footwear, so GST will be now 12% on footwear. Earlier it was 5%, right? So here we need to talk about what is this GST Council and why the tax defer rate decrease on textiles. So earlier it said that it will come at a 12% slab, but it mainly deferred to 5%. So we are going to understand that, and this will be important from our economic point of view, which mainly comes under GS paper 3. And next topic is about FCRA licenses of NGO, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act licenses of NGO extended by 3 months. So already we studied about background of this article from last 3 days, right? So what happened, missionaries of charity MOC, they are not got a renewal from this FCRA because of some mismatches that are mainly seen. And now this article says that even though they are not getting renewal by December 31st, so the time extended for 3 months. Okay, so this is one development in this FCRA. So this is important from our polity point of view, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. And next topic it is about Rajya Sabha annual productivity drops to 59%. So here you need to talk about parliament, and here you need to know what are the reasons behind decreasing of productivity, and here you need to understand so why there is a decreasing of productivity of Rajya Sabha that is seen. So this will be important from our polity point of view, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. And next topic it is regarding our economy. It is regarding core sector. So core sector output rose 3.1% in November. So this is important from economy, which mainly comes under GS paper 3. And next topic is about foreign owned assets in India rose by $37 billion in quarter 2. So this is important from our economy again. So these are the 6 topics. Now we have our discussion. So now let us try to see first article. Title says needless provocation. So it is regarding India-China relations regarding border. So as we all know that India it is sharing boundary with China, and we are having dispute at western sector, at central sector and at eastern sector. So at western sector we are having standoff since 2020, April 2020 onwards we are seeing standoff at LAC, and we went for different rounds of talk, but till now there is no full disengagement that is seen across this LAC region. And now in this eastern sector, China is mainly claiming this entire Arunachal Pradesh, and it is coming up with changing of 15 places names of some areas which are present in this Arunachal Pradesh. Mainly it is officially it want to publish in their maps. So this is one cause of concern. So now let us try to see what is written in this article. So if you're talking about central theme, it mainly says that India, China, they must adhere to past agreements to keep the pace along the border. So whatever the agreements that are mainly present between India and China, there are 5 agreements. We discussed about these 5 agreements. So let me know which are those agreements in comment box. Don't forget about this. So India and China, they must adhere to past agreements to keep peace and peace along the border. So if you want to maintain peace along the border, we need to adhere to agreements which are already signed between India and China. Right? So if you're talking about what is the present context, China renamed 15 places in Arunachal Pradesh. In Arunachal Pradesh, it renamed 15 places in its own language. And in this way, Chinese mainly claiming these 15 places as South Tibet. And this area which mainly comes under administrative control of China. So they came up with renaming of these 15 places. Okay. So this is context. And China said last year that it did not recognize Arunachal Pradesh as part of India. So even China said that it didn't recognize Arunachal Pradesh as part of India. It mainly comes under administrative control of China. So because of this, this move mainly taken by China. So India's Ministry of External Affairs said in a statement that mainly to move that assigning invented names will not alter any facts on the ground that Arunachal's status is an integral part of India. So in this context, in retaliation, India's External Affairs Minister, he said that even though it is changing names, also it will not amount that Arunachal Pradesh will come under administrative control of China. But the fact here is Arunachal Pradesh, which is mainly comes under integral part of India. So this is the thing which mainly said by our External Affairs Minister. So not only this, in 2017 also Chinese authorities, they officially issued some names of 6 places in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. So in 2017 also, but we can say like it is not for the first time. So this type of move taken by China. But even in 2017, Chinese authorities mainly issued official names for 6 places in Arunachal. So the first instance followed a visit by Dalai Lama. So after visit of Dalai Lama in our country, so Chinese authorities, they mainly came up with official names of 6 places in Arunachal Pradesh. That happened in 2017. And if you're talking about those 15 places, mainly include some residential places, some mountain areas, rivers, and as well as mountain passes. So these are the changed names by China. You can refer that. And if you're talking about, so these 15 places, so the list mainly covers 11 out of 25. Out of 25 districts in Arunachal Pradesh, it is mainly claiming 11 districts. So it is mainly extending from Tawang in west to Dibang Valley in the north and Anjar in east. So these are the areas. And if you're talking about this naming announcement, so this naming announcement was made ahead of new border law coming into force from January 1st, 2022. So regarding this new border law, we studied in our yesterday's lecture. So if you have not watched yesterday's lecture, so please try to watch that lecture. There you can get information regarding this new border law of China. Okay, so this new border law of China, which is mainly proposed, which was mainly proposed in March 2021, and here this law which mainly calls for Chinese government mainly to take some steps, especially to safeguard its Chinese territory. Okay, and next important point here is, so in this context, our country, that is New Delhi, which has some expressed concern about the law, and our country, India, which is mainly sees this law as an attempt mainly to formalize the transgressions which is mainly made by Chinese military since summer 2020 in this LAC region. So this announcement this week came in India, and as well as China remains engaged as at both diplomatic and even military levels to complete stall disengagement. So what happened? So we went for different levels of rounds of talks between India and China, mainly to come up with a disengagement and to maintain status quo, but they had not been worked. There is no full disengagement that is mainly seen. And apart from this, author mainly says that rather than needless provocations, we need to follow or we need to adhere to the agreements which are already present, such that it will be very much helpful. Okay, so this is about this topic, and I hope it is very much clear. Now let us try to see next topic. It is regarding GST Council. GST Council differs tax rate increase on textiles. So it is mainly talking about textiles regarding GST slab. So earlier it was under 5%, it increased to 12% recently. So here what happened, this will come into effect from January 1st, 2022. But again it is not implemented, and they want to continue with this 5%. So now let us try to see this topic, and this topic will be important from your economy point of view. So if you see context, it mainly says that hours before new GST rate was taken into effect. That means from January 1st, 2022, here GST Council said that this new tax slab will be applicable. But before some hours of new GST rates that come into effect, GST Council, which mainly decided to temporarily roll back the increase in the tax rate of textile sector. So emergency meeting that held in this GST Council, and they mainly postponed, okay, temporarily, that they decided that they need to go on with the old tax rate rather than this 12% of this tax rate, especially for this only textile sector. Okay, it's talking about only textile sector. And if you're talking about some details, it mainly says that, so this move mainly follows demands from several states, for example Gujarat, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. So these three states which are mainly asking for this, they should not go for this 12%, and because of that emergency meeting held, and they came up with temporary withdrawal of this 12% to 5%. So the decision was that we retain the status quo and not to move towards 12% of GST slab from 5%, especially in case of textiles. Because various states, for example Gujarat, West Bengal, Delhi, Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu, they opposed the move of raising of this GST tax slabs on textiles to 12%, and this 12% that will come into effect from January 1st, 2022. Okay. And now let us try to talk about some facts regarding this GST Council. So if you are talking about this GST Council, it is a constitutional body which mainly comes under Article 279A of Indian Constitution. Okay, and what is the important responsibility of this GST Council means, it mainly makes some recommendations to union and as well as state government regarding issues of goods and service tax. So regarding this goods and service tax, the GST Council will make some recommendations for both center and as well as central state governments. Okay, and this GST Council, which is mainly chaired by our Union Finance Minister, and who will be the other members? Other members of this GST Council includes Union State Minister of Revenue and as well as Finance, and even ministers in charge of finance or taxation of all the states. So here chairperson will be our Union Finance Minister, and other members include the State Minister of Revenue or Finance, and next one is ministers in charge of finance and as well as taxation. So those will be the members and chairperson of this GST Council. And if you're talking about this GST Council, it is a federal body which mainly contains center and as well as states representation. Okay, there is representation from state, center and as well as state. So these are some important facts regarding this GST Council. And now let us try to see next topic. Title says FCRA, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act licenses of NGOs, which is mainly extended by 3 months. Okay, so for 3 months there is extension of this licenses of this FCRA for this NGO. So to understand this, we need to know about background. So what is background? Recently, Missionaries of Charity, which is mainly led by Global Laureate Mother Teresa, it didn't got renewal from this FCRA license. Okay, so because of some mismatches that are mainly seen, and it is having more than 250 accounts throughout the country. But according to this recent amendments of this FCRA 2020, it says that they need to have a bank account from this SBI branch of Delhi, but they are having more than 250 branches, and whatever the thing they are getting, they are mainly spending less amount. Okay, so because of this, they didn't get renewal from this FCRA. So here what happened, this article says development regarding that incident. So it mainly says that even though they are not getting a renewal by December 31st, they are getting extra 3 months of time. Okay, so this is about this topic, and now let us try to see in detail. So this article will be important from your polity point of view, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. If you are talking about context, it mainly says that Union Home Ministry extended by another 3 months, okay, 3 months the validity of licenses for FCRA registered NGOs. For FCRA registered NGOs, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act registered NGOs, so the validity of licenses which mainly increased to another 3 months, even though if they are not renewed by 31st December. So this is context. And if you're talking about details, it mainly says that the extension this public interest will however bring no relief to missionaries of charity which mainly founded by Mother Teresa. So author mainly says that even though extension of FCRA license which has happened for next 3 months, it is not going to bring relief for this missionaries of charity. So why? Because these NGOs whose request for renewal was turned down and would not be eligible. So even though there is extension for 3 months, they are not eligible for receiving or utilizing of these foreign contributions in their designated bank accounts. So because of this, even though they got extension for 3 months, it is not much helpful for these missionaries of charity. So this is the thing which mainly said by author. So if we are talking about why we need registration, because if any NGO it want to receive these foreign contributions, they need to mandatory or compulsorily they need to be registered under this FCRA, okay, and that permission or that registration that need to be renewal once in every 5 years. So this is gist of this topic, and here I want to give you a small homework. You need to refer some facts regarding this FCRA. Already from last 3 to 4 days we are discussing about this topic. So please do revision regarding this FCRA because you can get questions. So here you need to talk about even amendments in 2010 and even 2020 as well. We already had a detailed discussion. So please try to look over them once again. And now let us try to see next topic. Title says Rajya Sabha RS annual productivity drops to 59%. So this article mainly talking about productivity of our upper house, that is Rajya Sabha. So now let us try to talk about this topic in a very great detail. So what happened? So I want to give you some brief background here. So if we are talking about our parliament, we have Lok Sabha and as well as Rajya Sabha. In Lok Sabha, BJP party which is like a majority party, but this BJP party which is not enjoying majority in Rajya Sabha. So apart from that, even because of this Pegasus issue, so in this recent Rajya Sabha, or we can say like recent sessions of our parliament, so opposition party, they had some boycott, they had some protest. So because of this, and we also saw that 12 opposition party members, they were not allowed for this winter session, and as well as some sessions which are mainly happened in this parliament. So because of all these things, now we can see productivity of Rajya Sabha had dropped to 59% in this year. So these are some important dimensions that you need to think. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that Rajya Sabha reported this is second lowest annual productivity. Second lowest annual productivity, that is like 59% in 2021 since its inception. So since its inception, we are saying this is the second annual lowest productivity. So if you're talking about further more details, it mainly says that what happened if you're talking about especially performance of parliamentary standing committees. Performance of this parliamentary standing committees in upper house which is above average. But what happened? But according to this Rajya Sabha Secretariat 2021, the productivity was found that is 59% of annual productivity, and this productivity is second lowest. Okay, so first lowest that is recorded in 2018, that is 36% of productivity. So even though there is decreasing of this productivity, so there were many controversial laws that mainly passed in this year 2021. So now let us move on to basics. So if you are talking about Parliament of India, we are having two houses. Okay, so as we all know, Parliament is the supreme legislative body of country. So in Indian Parliament, we comprises two houses along with our president. So those two houses includes Rajya Sabha and as well as Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha is called as upper house, or we can say like Council of States. And Lok Sabha, it is a lower house and it is called as House of the People, right? And if you're talking about power of president, so president has power that he can summon and he can prorogue either the House of Parliament or he can also dissolve this Lok Sabha. So this is some introduction regarding Parliament of India. So if you're talking about what are the reasons behind low productivity of Rajya Sabha, first one is there is dissatisfaction of this member of parliament because of inadequate time and as well as they are not addressing their grievances. So this is the first important thing. And matters such as Pegasus issue. So Pegasus issue and some concerns over some controversial bills, so that led to frequent disruptions of house. And next one is unresponsive attitude of government and even retaliatory posture of treasury benches. So there is from government side there is no proper response. And next one is political parties, they are not adhering to parliamentary norms. Okay, and next one is there is absence of prompt action against disrupting MPs under legislature rules. So these are some important reasons that led to frequent disruptions of house. So this is just of this topic and I hope it is very much clear. Now let us try to see next topic. Title says core sector output rose 3.1% in month of November. So in month of November, core sector output had been increased. So here you need to understand what is this core sector. So there are 8 sectors. I want to give you mnemonic, that is F, E, R, N, S, 3 C's. Fertilizer, electricity, refineries, natural gas, steel, coal, okay, coal, cement, okay, coal, cement and crude oil. So these are 8 core sectors. You have to remember this and it might be a prelims question. So here this core sector which mainly comes under our economy, which mainly comes under our GS paper 3. And here this topic is very much important from our economy because so this core sector performance which will be very helpful to understand economic status of India. Okay. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that output of 8 core sectors. So output of 8 core sectors had been rose by 33.1%. That is increasing of output of this core sectors of 3.1% in month of November. So if you're talking about the same month in last year, that is November 2020, there was contraction of 1.1% that is seen, and now in this year in November month there is increasing of this core sector output. So if you see some details, it mainly says that so bearing crude oil, cement and other sectors, they recorded positive growth. Okay, so cement, crude oil which are mainly shown some positive growth in month of November. So in October, these core sectors output which mainly grown by 8.4%. And if you're talking about some data which mainly says that coal production expanded by 8.2%, natural gas by 23.7%, and refinery products by 4.3%, fertilizer by 2.5%, steel by 0.8%, electricity by 1.5%, especially in month of November. And next one is the growth rate of 8 core sectors. For example, coal, crude oil, natural gas, fertilizers, refinery products, steel, cement and electricity, which mainly stood like 13.7% from April to November. Okay, and if you see last year there was contraction of 11.1%. And now let us try to talk about some facts regarding this core sector. So we have 8 core industries and they comprise about 40.27% of weight of items in our index of industrial production, that is IIP. So those core sectors I gave you mnemonic and I hope it will be helpful to remember for you. And if you are talking about this IIP, that is index of industrial production. So this index of industrial production is index which mainly tells about details of growth of various sectors in our economy. For example, mining, electricity and as well as manufacturing. and All India Index of Industrial Production. So this is a composite indicator, and this indicator which mainly measures short-term changes in the volume of production of basket of industrial products. And next one is, so this IIP Index of Industrial Production, which mainly published by CSO, Central Statistical Organization. Okay, so these are some important things that you need to remember regarding this topic. And now let us try to see next topic. So before seeing this topic, I want to make you a small announcement. If you want to clear this UPSC, I will strongly suggest you to join this prelims test series and as well as mains answer writing course which we are launching in our Rathod's IAS Academy. So in this prelims test series, we are providing 30 tests which includes both CSAT and as well as your GS. And if you're talking about this mains answer writing course, it is exclusive and highly beneficial. If you are following our news analysis, you might be knowing that even a single day we didn't miss any news analysis. So you can understand how much dedicated we are, right? So here, I will suggest you people to join this course. It is very beneficial because here we are having answer writing practice. So as you all know, mains answer writing, it is a deciding factor to it will be helpful to see your name in the final list. Without proper answer writing skills and without much focus on your mains, you can't clear this UPSC for 100%. So here we are focusing on GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4 along with case studies and essay. And we are giving limited syllabus of 2 to 3 chapters per every week, on which we are having daily answer writing practice. On Sunday, we have essay or case study writing practice. And the new batch for this mains answer writing practice, it is going to be starts from day after tomorrow, from January 3rd. So please hurry up and please try to join these courses. It will be highly beneficial. You can 100% trust me. I am the academic director of this Rathod's IAS. Okay. So if you have believe in me and if you are trusting me, so please join these courses. And apart from that, we also have a foundational course, entire foundational course of this UPSC GS, and the cost is also very low. You can also join this. And in this foundational course, we are providing like more than 700 hours of recorded lectures, and we are focusing on this concept clarity. Okay. And next one here is, if you want to join individual courses like economy, history, geography, and as well as like international relations, disaster management, like that, you can also join those courses. It will be very beneficial. It is also highly economical as well. And now let's come back and let us try to see these topics. So before that, if you want to see the schedules of this mains answer writing course and prelims test series, so details are given in description box. You can see that once. And if you want to talk to me directly, you can call to this number 8074765513. Okay. And now let's come back and let us see last topic of the day, that is foreign owned assets in India rose by $37 billion in Q2. So it is mainly talking about foreign owned assets. Actually, this article which is mainly talking about one important thing, that is IIP. So IIP, it is not Index of Industrial Production here. It is about international investment position. Okay. International investment position. So this will be very important, and you can get a question like international investment position is seen in news. So which is the organization releasing this? So this is nothing but our RBI. Okay. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail, and we can understand different dimensions. So if you are talking about context, it mainly says that foreign owned asset in India, which mainly increased by $37.3 billion. Okay. Foreign owned assets in India increased by $37.3 billion during the second quarter, that is from July to September, and this is according to our RBI data. So if you're talking about details, it mainly says that Indian residents' overseas financial assets, which mainly rose by $31.9 billion. Okay. So here the first one, it is $37.3 billion. It is foreign owned assets in India. So assets which are owned by foreigners. This is about $37.3 billion, right? And Indians which are having assets outside India, they mainly like $31.9 billion assets, and it is like 3/4 of our reserve assets. So Indian residents over financial assets mainly rose by $31.9 billion, and it is like 3/4 of which mainly comes under our reserve assets. So this article also says that this also reflects our special drawing rights by IMF. So IMF, it is mainly having special drawing rights. So let me know what is the special drawing rights, SDR. If you don't know about this SDR, let me know in comment box. In tomorrow's lecture, we are going to discuss about this SDR. Okay, so if you're talking about this article, which also says that RBI released this IIP, International Investment Position. So here, what is this International Investment Position? International Investment Position, it is a statistical statement. Okay, it is a statistical statement, and this statement which mainly shows that at a point in time, the value and as well as composition of financial assets of residents of an economy, which mainly claims on non-residents, and gold bullion, which mainly held as reserve assets. Okay, so this IIP, that is International Investment Position, which mainly says that how much amount of foreign assets which are mainly owned by Indians in other foreign countries, and it also includes how much amounts of assets in India which are owned by foreigners in India as well. So if you're talking about what is the purpose, so what is the use, what is significance or importance of this IIP? So whenever we are having such type of balance sheet, so this will be helpful for analysis of international accounts. So in this way, it will also helpful to understand sustainability and as well as vulnerability, and even it will be useful for analyzing economic structure, and even it will be useful for studying the relationship to domestic sources of financing, and even it will be helpful for coming up with policy decisions. So this is gist of this topic. So these are some important topics that appeared in our Hindu newspaper today, and in editorial you are getting two articles. You got two articles from COVID-19 related thing. So already we had enough discussion. So if you are interested, you can go through that once again. And I want to say one thing, please don't forget to subscribe to Rathod's IAS, and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos, and try to join these courses of prelims test series, mains answer writing, individual courses, foundational course. So this will be highly beneficial. And once again, before concluding, I want to wish you a very happy new year once again. So by this I'm concluding. Thank you so much.